All right, welcome. Today, we are diving deep into a core concept in Buddhist philosophy called Chön Ngộ, or right view. Now, that might sound pretty straightforward, right? But I'm telling you, get ready because this idea is going to flip everything you think you know on its head.
So here's our game plan for today. First up, we're going to hunt for the one single thing that underpins the entire Buddhist path. Then we'll test our own thinking with some tricky questions about karma and even marriage. After that, we dive into this incredibly powerful story. It's a real gut punch, all about compassion. And that'll lead us to the final piece, what it means to have a truly unwavering mind. Sound good? Let's get into it.
Okay, first up, the one essential path. We're on the hunt for that one single foundation. And this whole thing kicks off in a pretty classic way. A student goes to their teacher with a big question. So this disciple asks the master to teach them about something you've probably heard of, Bat Cheng Dao, or the Eightfold Path. You know, it's that famous roadmap in Buddhism that's supposed to show you the way out of suffering. But the master, he doesn't just give a straight answer. Instead, he throws a puzzle back at them. He says, look, out of all 8 of these paths, there's really only one that matters. He says without this one, the other 7 are totally useless. So, what could it possibly be? And you can just imagine, the disciples are totally baffled. It's gotta be a trick question, right? I mean, how can 8 things be just one thing? What is this one single piece that holds everything else up?
And then the answer comes. It's Chön Ngộ, right view. And the master explains that this is the bedrock. It's the absolute cornerstone. Think about it. Without the right perspective, without seeing things clearly, everything else you do, speaking right, acting right, being mindful, it's like using a map, but the map is upside down. You can walk with perfect form, but you're just getting more and more lost.
Okay, so the foundation is laid down. Right view is key. But the master doesn't just stop there. He immediately starts testing his students to see if they really get it. Because this isn't about just learning a new word, you know? It's about fundamentally changing how you see the entire world. And get this. He asks a question that sounds completely nuts. I want you to really think about this for a second. Is creating bad karma, I mean, doing something so awful that it lands you in hell, could that possibly be a form of right view? No way, right? It just sounds totally backward. And yeah, that's pretty much exactly what the disciples say. They go with common sense, right? Of course not. If you end up in hell, you obviously messed up. You must have had wrong view. Makes sense, but the master tells them they're completely wrong. 0 point. So here's the twist, the core insight. Right view isn't about being a perfect person who never does wrong. It's about understanding cause and effect. Simply knowing that doing a bad thing leads to hell, that knowledge itself is right view. Why? Because that understanding is the very thing that stops you from doing it in the first place. It's not about arriving at the perfect destination. It's about having the right map to guide you. All right, section 3. Now we're going to take this tricky idea and apply it to something we can all relate to. The master brings the paradox right into our everyday lives. He asks, is getting married a form of right view? What about living a normal life, having a family, all of that? Does that stuff, falling in love, building a home, does that line up with this deep spiritual idea of right view? And once again, the disciples, they just don't know what to say. They're totally fumbling. You can almost hear them guessing, it's just a social thing. It's legal, so it must be okay. Maybe it's neither right nor wrong, just a thing people do. One of them even tries to say, the question itself is bad. But nope, they're all missing the point. And then the master drops the key insight. He says the action itself, getting married, is basically neutral. It's not inherently good or bad. What matters is the view, the intention behind the action. So if you get married out of selfishness or clinging or wanting to control someone, well, that's based on wrong view, and it's going to lead to a lot of pain. But if a marriage is built on real wisdom, on true compassion and understanding, then that very same act becomes right view. It becomes part of the path. It's all about the why. Okay, so to make this crystal clear, the master tells a story. And I have to warn you, this one it's really stark. It's challenging. It's designed to make us question everything we think we know about some really big things, like love and grief and what compassion actually looks like. So here's how it goes. A father and his son, they're out working in the fields together. And then tragedy strikes. The son gets bitten by a venomous snake, and he dies right there. But the father, he doesn't scream, he doesn't collapse. After a moment, he just calmly continues with his work. Now, someone else sees this happen, a traveler, another spiritual seeker, and he is absolutely stunned. He goes up to the father, and the father just calmly says, life has birth and it has death, crying and sorrow. They don't do anything for the one who's gone. And then he adds this really practical detail. Just tell my family to bring one less meal tomorrow. And the observer is just horrified. He thinks this is completely heartless, a total lack of love, a basic human feeling. I mean, how could a father not cry for his own son? That's the question, isn't it? The one we're all thinking? Is this guy some kind of monster? But then the master's explanation just flips the whole thing upside down. He says, look at it from a different perspective. If the father had cried hysterically, completely lost his mind with grief, that would cause the father immense suffering, right? Well, from a karmic point of view, the son's spirit would then be responsible for causing his father all that pain. It would be a huge, heavy burden on him. So, by staying calm, the father was actually doing the most compassionate thing possible. He was protecting his son's spirit, ensuring it could have a peaceful journey free from that debt. His calmness wasn't a lack of love. It was the deepest, most profound expression of love. So where does that leave us? What is this incredible story really teaching us about right view? Well, it's pointing to the ultimate goal, which is to develop a mind that is so stable, so wise, that it just can't be shaken. And this leads to this really amazing concept called Vo Phan Phuc. It basically translates to no relapse or no falling back. It's describing a state of mind where right view is so deeply wired in, so much a part of you, that you just don't revert to old, reactive, ignorant ways of thinking, no matter what happens. See, that family in the story, they had achieved that state. They weren't heartless. What we were seeing was profound wisdom in action. They weren't being thrown around by the normal waves of emotion that swamp the rest of us. They were acting from a place of true compassion, a compassion that was built on the rock of right view. And so the master leaves his students with this one last really powerful image, a metaphor. He says life is constantly offering us bait on a hook. The bait, that's all the tempting stuff, right? Pleasure, desire, getting what we want. It looks delicious. But hidden inside every piece of bait is a hook, and that hook is suffering. We get so focused on how good the bait tastes that we don't even see the hook until it's too late, and we're caught. So that leaves the final question, really. And it's not for the disciples, it's for us. In your life, when you're faced with all of it, love, loss, temptation, pain, are you just going to keep biting at the bait over and over, ignoring that there's always a hook inside? Or are you going to work on cultivating right view, that wisdom to see both the bait and the hook for what they really are? And in doing so, finally find a way to be free. So in your life, which one are you going to focus on?